Today I have a Giants trade deadline video for you guys. Of course, the Marcus Golden trade happened just a couple days ago. I made my reaction to that one. Good move by the Giants. I liked it, getting a 6th-round pick for a guy that won't be back here next year. That's basically my takeaway from it, so I liked it. But in this video, we'll go over some guys that I think could be traded, even some trades the Giants could make to take players back, which I don't want to be the case. I'd rather trade for draft assets and things like that. But of course, people want to know what young players on some good contracts can the Giants trade for. So I threw out 5 or 6 possibilities, but in my honest opinion, I think trading for draft picks probably makes the most sense here. But there's guys like Kevin Zeitler, Golden Tate, even Evan Engram, possibly Sterling Shepard that could be thrown out there. Guys on expiring contracts like Leonard Williams and Dalvin Tomlinson, can they be traded? What kind of offers can the Giants field for those guys? I went into all that, so hopefully you guys enjoy this video. The trade deadline is November 3rd, so I just will let that be known. The Giants play on Monday night, which is November 2nd, so they will have one more game before the trade deadline. We'll see if a move is made before then, possibly during this week, but I guess we'll find out. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and let's get into it. So we'll start with the most likely scenario and guys that the Giants will probably trade away, which I think will probably happen. Not all these guys, but I think maybe a couple of them, maybe one of them might happen to get traded in the next week or so. So the first one is Kevin Zeitler. Zeitler's a guy the Giants traded for just a couple years ago, I think last offseason or 2 off seasons ago it was now. But basically, I look at him as a rental player because Zeitler's contract, I think the cap hit next year is $14 million, but a team, if it was the Giants, for instance, can cut him for only $2 million in dead cap space. So it would make a lot of sense financially to cut Kevin Zeitler after this offseason or during the next offseason. So I think for the Giants, a team that's 1-6, probably not going to make the playoffs, it would make a lot of sense to try and get what you can for a guy like Zeitler. And there's teams out there that can definitely use some interior offensive line help, even a right guard specifically. I threw out the Eagles, who they were starting Jamon Brown at some points. They're having a lot of problems there. The 49ers have their interior problems sometimes. I think since Marshall Yanda left, honestly, the Ravens haven't really found their guy yet, so maybe Kevin Zeitler can be a rental player for them. Maybe the Chiefs as well. They can use some inside help. Then you have the Green Bay Packers, who, since TJ Lang left, I feel like they haven't had a great right guard. Maybe Josh Sitton. I don't know if he was left guard or right guard, but still, they might have some interior offensive line issues as well. So trading for a guy like Zeitler probably would not be a bad move for those teams. As I said, it's probably a rental player. It's going to cost, I think the Giants can probably field a 5th or 6th round pick. I kind of look at this as the Damon Snacks Harrison scenario just from a couple years ago, where they got a 5th round pick from him from the Lions, because this is a guy that's 30, 31 years old now. Right guard is not a huge difference maker position type. It's not like you're trading for a left tackle here, or even a right tackle. So Zeitler, who's going to be a rental player, I feel like you might get a 5th rounder at most. If they get a 4th, that's fantastic. But I just, being realistic, I think 5th or 6th is probably the best they can get. So honestly, I'd be okay with that. I don't see Zeitler having much of a future here. I feel like from last year, his play might have dropped off a little bit so far this year. So, I'm okay with it. I want Shane Lemieux to play and get him acclimated to the NFL, get used to the game speed and things like that. So I'd be okay with it personally, but we'll see what the Giants want to do there. Next one's Golden Tate. I feel like 99% of Giants fans probably want Golden Tate gone. I don't see them getting anything more than a 7th round pick. His contract does have two years left on it after this, but whoever has him can basically get out of his contract for $4 million on a dead cap, which is not too bad. Some teams that could use some slot receiver help, I think, could be Baltimore. Of course, they have Marquise Brown, Mark Andrews, I think Willie Snead and Duvernay and guys like that, but they don't really have a surefire slot receiver that they could use. So Golden Tate could be useful there. The Browns might have lost Odell for a long time, honestly. He had a bad knee injury today. I know Jarvis Landry's there, but still adding another receiving option, especially if Odell Beckham's gone, for a team that's now 4 or 5-2, I think the Browns are, making a push for the playoffs. I think Golden Tate could make a difference there. They have Rashard Higgins now, so there's not much receiver depth there, honestly. The Green Bay Packers, a team that did not draft a wide receiver in the draft, which was surprising to some. They lost Allen Lazard for basically the year. Devontae Adams is still backpacking that receiving core as usual. But, when you have guys I don't know if Equinemius St. Brown's still there, and Marquez Valdes-Scantling I know is still there, but he's kind of been inconsistent as he's always been. So maybe they add a solid veteran in Golden Tate. And then the Saints. The Saints, of course, have had Michael Thomas out for a while, Emmanuel Sanders. They have some younger guys that stepped up today. Traquan Smith. Who's the other guy? Marquez Callaway or something. So, yeah, they have some names there, but if they want another veteran receiver, maybe they go ahead and take a shot on Golden Tate. We'll see, but I really don't see the Giants getting anything more than a 7th round pick, if anything. I feel like he might be stuck on the Giants, so we'll see about that one. Next one's pretty interesting. Guy on a franchise tag, Leonard Williams. So Leonard Williams has produced pretty well this year. He's had a nice year so far. Some teams might be interested in him. First one I have is the Buccaneers. They lost Vita Vea. They have some cap space, I think, going into next year. So maybe they're a team that can trade for Leonard Williams and possibly extend him. They already have a great defense there. Why not add a guy like Leonard Williams if you could afford it? I think that'd be a good idea for them. The Tennessee Titans, I mean, they have Simmons at interior, but the other defensive tackle spot, I don't think there's anything special. So they could add a guy like Leonard Williams and definitely bolster that run defense, which has not been that great for the Titans so far this year. I'm sure Titans fans can attest to that. The Raiders, they still start Jonathan Hankins, who is okay, but Leonard Williams is definitely a better player. The Raiders could be competing for a wild card spot. We'll see, but if they want to go all in this year and possibly re-sign Leonard Williams in the future, that could be a good move for them. And then the Seattle Seahawks, they have Jerry Tillery at the interior, who's definitely not paid off so far. He was a first-round pick last year. I'm trying to think who else they have. I think, I forget the guy's name, Jaron Reed maybe, who's decent, but still, or Jaron Reed, not Jaron Reed. But yeah, he's decent. Leonard Williams is probably the best player out of that bunch, so if they want to trade for a guy, a playoff team in Seattle, who I think they have some cap space at least, they can probably make a move for him, so we'll see. But what can the Giants get in return? I mean, the best thing possible, I think, would be a second-round pick. Being realistic about it, I think third or fourth round pick's probably the best you can get. But honestly, a third or fourth round pick's not bad. You can get a good player there, so I'd be okay with that personally, especially if they have no plans on re-signing Williams. Don't let him walk and go for the comp pick. Try and get an early third round pick if you could. You know what I mean? So it's possible. I know these teams probably wouldn't pick early in the third round anyway, but rather than just settling for the comp pick, go ahead and get a pick for this year's draft and actually make something happen. So we'll see. Next is Dalvin Tomlinson, a guy that I personally want to keep, but, as I said, I don't know what the Giants are going to do with these guys. There's going to be probably a new GM next year. We'll see what happens. Now, there's not really a premier market for just generally run stuffers, but I think the Giants, for a guy like Tomlinson, who still is on a cheap contract for at least this season, needs to be extended in the offseason, but cheap contract right now, I think they can probably get a fourth or fifth round pick for him just to have team control for a guy like this. So I think a team like Green Bay, who struggles against the run, can definitely use a guy like him. The Colts as well can use a guy like this. Tampa Bay, as I said, they lost Vita Vea. Could be a nice improvement for them with the injury. A team that's probably going to go, try and go all out for a Super Bowl this year. I think Tampa Bay can use a guy like Tomlinson. Then once again, we have the Titans, who struggle against the run this year, as I mentioned, and even the Bills, who had their problems against the run this year as well, can definitely use a guy like Dalvin Tomlinson. So if the Giants can get a fourth or fifth round pick for Tomlinson, okay. I don't know if I would do it. I think fourth round, I would think about it. I'd probably want a third round pick though, so I personally want to extend him. But if the Giants trade him, it would not shock me. I'll say that. Evan Engram, the guy everyone hates. Look, I think Evan Engram, you have to get the right price for. Realistically, I think the Giants can probably get a third or fourth rounder for him. If they get a second rounder, I probably would do it. I think in a previous video I said I want a top 70 pick for him. I don't know if they'll get that because that's pretty much the third round, early third round. The thing with Engram, though, he's on a good contract for now because he's not making too much this year. He's on that fifth-year option next year. I think he probably makes I don't know how much, maybe $6 or $8 million for 1 year next year, which isn't terrible. But if a team sees potential in a guy like Engram, who's still young and can produce at a high level if he's used in the right system and things like that, the Giants don't use him the right way, obviously, then I think he can be a good addition for a team. So obviously I have the Green Bay Packers in here. I know they have Robert Tonyan. They have some other guys, Sternberger. I mean, they don't have the best tight ends, but they can definitely use a playmaker. So Engram, I'll throw his name in there. The Arizona Cardinals, that's a good one because they have a guy named Dan Arnold who's not that good. I feel like he's a former Saint or something, but he's really not that good. The Cardinals can use an athletic tight end to throw into that mix of Christian Kirk and DeAndre Hopkins and Drake and Chase Edmonds. That would be a nice player to throw in there for the Cardinals. I kind of like that fit, honestly. Jacksonville really has no tight ends. They have Tyler Eifert, some other guy who's not that good. They can use a tight end. And I look at Engram. I know the Jaguars are not competing for the playoffs. I get it. But I look at Engram as a future investment because Engram's, 25 years old, 26 at the most. If you get him, you can extend him, use him the right way, and basically get a lot for him and only give up a third or fourth round pick. So teams might look at that as a positive. And if the Jaguars feel they can make him into a great tight end, then they'll probably go ahead and do that. The Seahawks, they have Greg Olsen, who's 38 probably, but probably on his last year. Jacob Hollister, Will Disley, not the best options. I think Engram's probably the best out of that bunch. I know he's not like those other guys, but still, if they want to use him as a more receiver and use him a different way than the Giants do, that could be a good fit. The Panthers, Greg Olson's former team, they don't have much of a tight end right now. I know they have Ian Thomas, who's definitely disappointed this year. The Panthers, while I don't think they'll make the playoffs this year, they're decent. They're competitive. They lost by like 3 points to the Saints today in New Orleans. So, yeah, I mean, if they want a tight end, they don't really have much right now. So if they want him for the future, I think that could be a good move. You have an explosive offense with a healthy McCaffrey. You have Robbie Anderson, DJ Moore. You add Evan Ingram to that. Bridgewater's playing well. You could have a decent offense there, so that would not be a terrible move. Then you have the Bills. I mean, the Bills tight ends missed this week because of the COVID situation. They have Tyler Kroft, Dawson Knox, guys that are decent. I think Knox has some potential, but still he's not like at Evan Ingram's level, in my opinion. And Josh Allen can definitely use another weapon. I mean, John Brown's kind of in and out of the lineup now with injuries. Stephon Diggs has been great. Cole Beasley's always consistent, but why not add one more guy? So if they can throw a third or fourth round pick for Ingram, might not be the worst move. Last one, Sterling Shepard. I don't think the Giants will get too much for Shepard, but the reason I want him out is because of his contract. He has, I think, 2 or 3, it might be 3 years left after this, and it's really like hard to get out of. I mean, they could get out of that contract after 2021, so after next season, and only take like $4 million in dead cap. So it wouldn't be the worst situation, but I feel like Sterling Shepard's never going to produce like a star wide receiver. So if the Giants got rid of him, I wouldn't really be too hurt by it. I mean, I do like him. He seems like a very likable guy, Sterling Shepard, obviously. He's never had really off the field issues. I mean, if you want to count the boat trip, fine, but really other than that, nothing. So I love him, but still, if they can get a 5th or 6th for him and get that contract off the books, it would not really bother me. I feel like the Giants should probably try and get the most assets possible, and if trading Shepard can do that and get you a 5th or 6th, then you might as well say go ahead and do it. So that is who I think the Giants can trade away. I could have missed some names. We'll see. People are going to ask about Saquon Barkley. I really don't think it's possible right now because, when you're coming off the ACL injury, no one's even seen him play yet. He's a running back. You're really not going to get too much for him. We've seen, the Jaguars flat out cut Leonard Fournette. We're seeing how bad the Ezekiel Elliott contract is for the Cowboys right now. It's not really his fault, but still, I think teams are now more savvy on running back value. So I really don't think you can get too much for Saquon Barkley. If you can get a first round pick for him, I would pull the trigger in a second. But I don't know what you can get for a guy like Saquon Barkley, especially coming off the injury. You're probably going to get 50 cents on the dollar for him. So to me, it's not worth it. But if the Giants get a first round pick offered for him in the offseason, I'd be the first one to say yes. So we'll see. But with that being said, we'll get into guys the Giants can trade for now. So now time for who can the Giants trade for? And I know some of these names might be kind of crazy. I don't really want to do any of these. Maybe 1 or 2. I'll let you guys know which ones. But the first one, and I know this one's kind of been thrown in the air at some points, even on Twitter I've seen this one. It's just an Evan Ingram for David Njoku straight up swap. Now these guys were drafted near each other back in that 2017 draft. Njoku's had a decent career for the Browns. I would say a bit underwhelming. He's been kind of injured, just like Evan Ingram has, and maybe even worse, honestly. He missed some games this year. He's been on IR already this year for 3 games. Njoku's best season was here in 2018. He had 56 grabs for 639 yards and 4 touchdowns. Pretty solid rookie year as well, but he missed a lot of games last year. He missed, 12 games that is. He's already missed 4 games this year. So, yeah, I mean, it's definitely a concern with his injuries, but Njoku is more of a different type of tight end. He's 6'4", 246, a different build than Evan Ingram, but I don't really trust him to stay healthy to make that trade. I feel like it's kind of a lateral move, so to me it makes no sense, but if you feel that both prospects need a new start and a new team, then maybe it makes sense in that case. He has 2 years remaining on his contract for $9 million. They picked up his 5th-year option. He's 24 years old, so still relatively young. So it wouldn't be the dumbest move in the world, but I just feel like it wouldn't really make too much sense. So to me, I'd be like, whatever, if they do it, fine, but it's not really going to change or move the needle for me, I should say. Next one is wide receiver Dante Pettis, a guy that's been just buried on the Niners depth chart. He has not really played much this year. I think he has 1 target this year so far. Pettis is a second-round pick. I think he was taken 44th overall just a couple years ago, back in 2018. Let's see his best year. I mean, he hasn't really played this year, as I said. His best year was his rookie year. He played in 12 games. He had 27 catches, 467 yards, 5 touchdowns. He had a couple of nice games his rookie year, I remember. So, when he plays, he's not the worst. Then in 2019, missed some games due to injury. He missed 5 games, had 11 grabs, 109 yards, only 2 touchdowns. Then this year it's only been, he's played in 4 games and has 1 target, no catches. So they're really just not using him. Of course, the Niners now have Brandon Ayuk. They have guys like Kendrick Bourne. They have I can't remember his name, Deebo Samuel. So yeah, they have other receivers they want to use other than I'm forgetting his name now, of course, Dante Pettis. But Pettis is an interesting prospect. He had a nice college career. I think he had 15 touchdowns in like his junior year at college. So like he could get the job done. I think he's really good in like yards after the catch as well. So I don't know if he'll develop into like a legit wide receiver one in the NFL. I don't really see that happening. But if he stayed healthy and got like the reps, I feel like he could be a decent player. The Giants don't own a 7th round pick this year, as I've mentioned in previous videos, due to the Isaac Yiadom trade that now belongs to Denver. So I said 6th round pick in this instance. He has 2 years left, $3.7 million, and is 25 years old. So if they wanted to make this move, I would not say it's the worst thing in the world. The guy has a lot of upside. I can deal with it. So Dante Pettis is all right with me. This one I don't see happening, but I just threw his name in there because I've seen the Patriots play the last 2 games. They looked absolutely terrible. They might hit the rebuild button at some point. I don't know necessarily. Maybe Cam Newton's just been off the last couple of weeks. I'm not sure, but they looked just so bad today. But I have Chase Winovich on here. Now, Winovich, of course, played with Joe Judge last season. I think he's only in his like 3rd year. I'm going to look real quick. But Winovich is an interesting player because like he can play anywhere in the front 7. I feel like he can play edge. He can play defensive end as well. He's from Michigan. He's a good player, though, honestly. He had a good year last year. His rookie year was last year at 5.5 sacks, 26 tackles, played in all 16 games. Didn't start any games, but played in all 16. 4 tackles for a loss, 10 quarterback hits. Like, he's a pretty good player, pretty solid player. I don't think it would be cheap, which is why I have him down for a 3rd or 4th round pick. But his contract is very friendly. I think I don't know what round Winovich went in. I think he might have been like a 4th round pick in the actual draft or a 3rd rounder. But his contract is very team friendly for the next 3 years, which is great. 3 years, $3 million basically total, 25 years old. I feel like he'd be a really nice fit here. He can play anywhere, as I said, can get to the quarterback, good energy player, good tackler. So I don't see the Patriots trading him in real life, but like if he was out there, I would say, okay, that's an interesting prospect. We'll see. But I'm not going to pay too much attention to that one because I feel like it probably won't happen. Next is wide receiver Anthony Miller, a player I've always liked. He's a slot receiver for the Bears, and he's kind of fell out of their rotation, I feel like, this year. That's kind of a basketball term, but fell out of the rotation in a way. They drafted Darnell Mooney this year, who's played like kind of over Anthony Miller at some points. Miller was drafted, I think, back in 2018. I believe he was a 3rd round pick. His best year was last season. He played in 16 games, played every game, 52 catches, 656 yards, had 2 touchdowns. And as I said, a pretty good slot option, very athletic player. But this year, he's only started in 1 game. So far, he has 16 catches, 169 yards, 2 touchdowns. And as I said, he's playing under a guy like Darnell Mooney, so that's like a 5th round pick right there. So I know they have Allen Robinson. I don't know what they look at with Anthony Miller anymore. He's 5'11", 200 pounds. I don't really think he'll be an outside guy, but it's possible. But we'll see. I think Anthony Miller's a pretty good prospect, though, so I would not mind that trade. He's still 26 years old, so I mean, I can live with that for a 5th or 6th round pick. And even a Sterling Shepard swap, I have that in there as well. I think Shepard right now might be a better player than Anthony Miller, and if the Bears feel that way, they might make that move, and I would definitely take that to get his contract off the books and take Miller, who's a lot, his contract's a lot more team friendly, so I would take that over a guy like Sterling Shepard. Next is a guy that I liked back in last year's draft, I think it was, Ben Banogu, outside linebacker drafted by the Colts in the, I think it was 3rd or 4th round. He has not played much in his NFL career. I'm going to look at it real quick. I mean, so far he's playing basically, his defensive snap numbers are between like, there's 14%, 22, 38, 19, 14, 12. Like his highest is 38% of defensive snaps this year, so he's not playing a lot for this team. Last year he had 2.5 sacks, played in all 16 games, had 11 tackles, 5 quarterback hits. So obviously not getting much of an opportunity there. They have like Justin Houston there, so I'm sure this guy is playing over him right now. Not saying that Banogu would be like a no-doubt starter on the Giants, but he's a good prospect. I liked him at TCU. I'm going to look at his TCU stats real quick. I think he had 2 seasons of 8.5 sacks, so 2 separate seasons. That's good to see right there. But yeah, he's a pretty good player. I think if he went to the right situation and got the reps, I think maybe he might produce a good NFL career. We'll find out. But I remember I liked him back in that draft. I think I had him in a Giants mock draft actually like that year. So I mean, I liked him. So maybe he'll end up being a good player. We'll see. He has 3 years left on his contract, $4.7 million, 24 years old. So still a lot of potential there. The Giants, I mean, look, they don't have Lorenzo Carter anymore. I know they have Fackrell. They traded Marcus Golden. They have Zimenez coming back. They have Cam Brown. They have who's the other guy? Carter Coughlin. They have some guys there, but Banogu I feel like might have some of the most upside out of those guys. I still like Zimenez a bit more, but Fackrell is still a good player. But if they want to get a guy like Banogu, I'm definitely like all for it. I could take it for a 6th round pick. Why not? And the last one, Yeah, I mean, I kind of just threw this one in there because I kind of forgot about it, but I'm like, you know what? Maybe it makes kind of sense. I'll try to talk myself into this one. But wide receiver Courtland Sutton, who just, exploded onto the scene last year for the Broncos. He was great. He tore his ACL in week 2 this year, I think, in a game against the Steelers. So, I don't know what the Broncos' plans are for him. Of course, he won't be back till next year, and I think next year is his last year on his rookie deal. I think he was a second or third round pick. I think it was second, though. So the Giants might have to trade a third or fourth round pick to get him. He has 2 years left on his contract, meaning this year and next year. But of course, this year he's not going to play due to the injury. $3.9 million and is 25 years old. So Sutton is a pretty big receiver, if I remember correctly. He's 6'4", 215. Last year had a really good year, as I said. He had 72 catches, played all 16 games, had over 1,100 yards, 6 touchdowns. Even his rookie year was not that bad, and he had guys like Emmanuel Sanders there. I don't know if Demaryius Thomas was there in 18. I'm trying to think, maybe. But in his rookie year, he had 42 catches. I think he was, actually. I think he was. Yeah, Demaryius Thomas was there as well. So he was basically the third wide receiver on the depth chart that year, but he still had 42 catches, over 700 yards, 4 touchdowns. It was not a bad year for Courtland Sutton. And then this year, of course, got hurt, 3 catches, 66 yards this year. So it is what it is. But I think Courtland Sutton, when he's healthy, is like a legit wide receiver 1 in this league. So if the Giants can get him and the Broncos don't have future plans for him, as we know, the Broncos took Jerry Jeudy in the first round. They took KJ Hamler. They have some other decent receivers, like Tim Patrick's been all right this year. They have Deshaun Hamilton, who's all right. So, they have decent wide receivers. They don't need to re-sign Courtland Sutton. And if they can field the draft pick for him, then, maybe they do that. I still feel like they'll hold on to him because, why not? He's still very young. But if the Broncos don't see themselves extending him in the future, then maybe they say to themselves, all right, we'll just take some draft picks for him now while it makes sense. So, I don't know. I mean, we'll see. I don't really see, any of these moves happening. I feel like the Giants should probably stay put. I could see something like a Dante Pettis happening for a 6th-round pick because that kid just gets no opportunities, and I feel bad for him. But we'll see. I don't know. I don't see Winovich happening. Njoku, probably not. Miller, probably not. Banogu, probably not. So I would love to have Courtland Sutton, and I think Dante Pettis is a pretty interesting prospect, both wide receivers, of course. So we'll see. But let me know in the comments who you guys want the Giants to go after, some possible trades that I left off my list. I tried to look out there and see what would make sense, and some guys that are on good contracts with a couple years left. But this is pretty much all I found. So let me know what you guys want the Giants to do for this trade deadline. What did you like that I put on here and things like that? Hopefully you enjoyed this video. I'll do the community page questions tomorrow, I think. We have a lot of questions too, so that's very nice of you guys to ask a lot of questions. I'll try to get to all of them, but I'll have that video out tomorrow, probably after work, so probably tomorrow night or so. Hopefully I'll have that out, but hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll talk to you next time.